Hey guys, Langosta here from the Redondo Rod and Gun Club. Tonight we're talking guns. We're talking about precision rifles, how to make your hunting rifle more accurate or your precision rifle more accurate. We're talking about scopes, platforms. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned. Thanks for coming. I was hoping we'd have more people here, but it's actually good that I'll be able to help you and answer more questions. So thanks for coming tonight. I want to do a series of these talks where we talk about setting up a rifle, setting up handguns, loads, different stuff like that. Tonight we're going to be talking about your rifle for accuracy. Now when we talk about that, it could definitely be a rifle for hunting, but it can also be one for precision shooting. And really what this boils down to is creating consistency. Consistency in all senses. Consistency in how you mount the gun, consistency in your ammunition, consistency in your optic system. I bought this rifle maybe 2 years ago. I haven't shot it tremendously, but I started to put something together, and there's some features that I like in a hunting rifle that is not common now. So if you haven't gotten a hunting rifle yet, consider you buying a used rifle. In this rifle, it has backup iron sights. In this case, it was probably the original set of sights that people used. So this has a fold down. This is a Remington Model 70, chambered in 243. This is your typical Model 70 safety system. So when you pull all the way back, this locks up completely. When you're here, the bolt is on safe, but you can still open it and activate it, and then full forward is fire. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what are your options. I haven't upgraded this system yet to the optics that I want, which is pretty much all of my other hunting rifles. I use this optic. This is a Leupold VX5. It has a red dot reticle on it. The glass is amazing. It has nice big numbers with positive clicks. So when you click it, you can actually audibly hear it. It also has a stop. So let's say that you've been shooting at 200, 300, 400, 500 yards. You bring it back to zero, and it will be back at zero because it has an actual stop. And obviously for low light conditions, it has a red dot. That really is a game changer. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make is getting a scope that's got too much power. This is a 3 to 15. They also get too big of an objective. And I'll tell you what the downfalls to that are. What I want is I want big numbers on it, and I want also the parallax to be on the side, so side focus. This scenario here activates and turns off the red dot. Those are some of the big features that I like. And if you see a bell bigger than this is a 44 millimeter, I really don't like, it causes issues with your rifle, and I'll talk about what those are. The larger you get the objective, the more of a cheek rise you'll get. Part of accuracy is being able to mount the gun in the same spot every single time. And I want a positive contact, meaning I would like the cheekbone to be on the stock. When you don't have a riser like that, you'll have to have a mechanical riser on your stock, or, so I'll demonstrate with this is too low. When I have a good anchor point, I'm actually looking down here. I have to bring my head up in order to be able to see through the objective. So that's me looking through the objective. You see how my cheek is off the gun? If you do that, you will get parallax, meaning your crosshair will look like it's on the target, but you keep missing. Or you have all these weird groups that go all over the place. You can't cycle it. If you don't anchor in the same spot on here, that'll cause that problem. The bigger the objective, the higher this is. So you can see that these rings are too high for this rifle. This is probably for 44 millimeter, right? So, but this is a 1-inch tube, so it won't fit on that. But point being that you really don't want to go any bigger than a 44. 44 will get you enough light, and it'll get you, the bigger tube also helps. So a 1-incher allows less light transmission, right? So that one is a 30 millimeter. That'll get you good. Some of the sniper rifles you'll see are 34 millimeter, so it's much thicker, right? Those are some of the features you should consider when you're talking about your setup. When choosing an optic, the two biggest mistakes people make is they get too much magnification and not enough low, especially for California hunting, Western hunting, even Texas hunting. If you go higher than this, you're at close range, it's just going to be a very tight field of view. You're not going to be able to scan things properly. In fact, if you look at the footage of the counter snipers that were on top of Trump's team, you could see one guy was on the tripod with his rifle and he's looking above the rifle. He can't find the guy. When I looked up those rifles, the lowest magnification is 7. 7 at 150 yards is very close. It's highly magnified. So if you have a rifle for a patrol and for an urban environment where your shots are going to be 150 yards and below, you definitely need a variable power scope somewhere in the 3 or 4 power on the low end. Cannot be higher than that, right? Because you're going to have a real hard time finding your target. The reason that I like the side focus is you're going to be able to do 2 kinds of adjustments. You're going to be able to adjust your parallax, and then you'll have your fine focus. So what this means is, this is going to get you very close to your distance, right? So if you're shooting at 400 or 500 yards, and this is probably more of an issue at about 400 to 500 yards than anywhere else, but you'll get a nice clear sight picture with this, and then you'll be able to do a fine focus. And when I mean fine focus, you should be able to see the blades of grass at 400 yards. You should be able to see the definition of them. When you set this up correctly, along with a good cheek rest, you're really setting up your system to be as consistent as possible. When it comes, let's talk a little bit about your rifle platform. So you know you're going to need a riser, and you'll know right away when you mount these guns, and you're looking underneath. I'm going to show you on purpose. I took the riser off of here because I want you to see what I'm talking about. You'll see that you'll have a blocked field of view. You won't be able to use it. And then I'll show you one of the rifles that I have here that has a fine adjustment. So the next thing is, for accuracy, is to have a quality stock where the bolt goes all the way through. So you see this bolt here, it goes through all the way through here. It doesn't just screw into the stock. You get a $700 rifle, $600 rifle, pretty much $700 and below, this is gonna screw into the stock. That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Don't do that. You should probably spend a minimum of $850 to $1,000 on the low end. And then, whatever you feel comfortable spending on the high end, that's up to you. But I would say that as far as like a hunting package that meet the very basic accuracy requirements, you're going to be looking at about $850. Now, if you get something used, you could get something in the $657. But I want you to be looking for very specific things. For a hunting rifle, you definitely have to consider weight. So between the stock weight and the barrel contour, that's what I'm talking about here now. You want a stripped rifle really to not be heavier than 7 pounds without the scope. Once you put the scope on, you'll be at probably about 10 pounds, the scope and gear and stuff. So accuracy-wise, it's all about concentricity. The center of the chamber where the bullet's gonna be in relation to the center of the barrel. The companies that have higher quality control standards will get that down correctly. And what that means is basically you have a sub-MOA gun. You cannot have a sub-MOA gun without having concentricity. So the center of your chamber and the center of your barrel. You just won't get it. So this is a Howa, what is it, 1500? This is a very good gun. It's a sub-MOA gun, no problem, with good ammo. It's a sub-MOA gun. This is chambered in what, 308? Yeah.
Question, are you sticking to variety hunt rifles or just bolt action hunt rifles?
Well, the principles are the same. So you're going to build your AR to the particular thing that you want to accomplish with it, right? Some people will use it for precision. Some people will use it for close quarter combat. Some people will do a Ricky rifle where you're going to go close. You'll set it up with an optic like a 1-6 where you can shoot very inside of a room, or you can go out to 400 yards. So your rifle setup has to be very specific to what your goal is going to be, right? But there'll be different nuances for different platforms, like an AR platform. But the idea is that you're following the principles that I'm talking about, which is when you have a scope set up, an optic set up on an AR, you have to be able to get a good cheek weld. Otherwise, it's the same shit, same problems.
On an AR, it's very difficult.
It is, but there's specific stuff, and I have some here I can show you, all right? So The principles are the same. You have to have the right gear that'll hold your optics. So what I want to bring to your attention now is this little setup right here. There's a few different types of rails. There's a Picatinny rail made by Weaver and Tally. These are Tally rings and a Tally base. And just put this on top of the rail and feel that. You're gonna see what a nice lockup that is. Then I'm gonna show you this, probably equal, maybe a little bit less money, but you see it's got a very nice billet build, but look how small the screw is on this. And it snapped. I used a torque wrench that has that little slip feature, and it still snapped it. I probably torqued it down too much. Yeah, I have the same issue all the time. But you'll see how thin this is compared to that. That diameter is twice as big. So I would recommend using something like that setup. A Picatinny rail with some Tally rings. You could use Weaver rings. You could make a case for using aluminum. That's an aluminum setup versus steel. Once you get to your rings connecting with this, you got to be very careful not to over torque them because you can change the architecture of your tube. Okay, so you got to stay at about a 25 max little tool. I'm going to show you a different tool for that here. You should always zero your rifle at 100 yards. And I'm going to show you why. You can actually, your homework, once you have your caliber selected, your homework is to dope the gun out, which means that you can actually move your turret to the desired correction for the distance that you're going to shoot at. Truth is, a 308, a 300 Win Mag, any of the Magnum rounds, 270, 7 mil, you're not going to really need to make much of an adjustment up until you get past 300 yards. If you look at your bullet drop, you know, your kill zone in a deer is definitely 12 inches, right? Between top of the back to the bottom of the rib cage. You know, if you don't shoot back, if you shoot in the front section, you're gonna get lungs, heart, probably a double lung shot, which is ideally what you wanna shoot. So this little setup here is a torque wrench, and it doesn't have that snap feature. It just basically is on a spring tension, and you can pass it around. That helps prevent what happened on that little Leupold setup. But mostly I recommend using a Mark IV type of a ring setup or a Tally type of setup. I bought those from HS Precision. They just came in this week for another rifle that I got. It's a pretty impressive ring for being aluminum. You know, typically I like using steel, but aluminum's okay. I just like the heavier hardware is important. What I would say is just be careful if you're mixing steel base with aluminum rings. They tend to loosen. So part of my range deal is I torque the rifle at the range just right before I'm gonna shoot. The minute that if you start shooting and you start seeing your spreads open and it's the same ammo that you've used all the time, you probably got something loose. Something's loose.
What about using Loctite?
I definitely use Loctite on the bases. I don't use it I use it on the bases and the rings. I don't use it on this piece here that holds the ring to the mount on a Picatinny. I just don't. It's not a big deal for me just to give it a little squeeze to 21. Plus, you know, it gives you a chance to look over your rifle carefully and find something else. So if you had a wood rifle, right? Yeah. And you look over everything, I'm gonna torque this, I'm gonna torque that, but I'm looking at the rifle and I'm looking for cracks. I'm looking for something weird on the stock. Maybe I'll run a dollar bill through here and see if I still have this gap. This rifle is not glass bedded yet. And glass bedding is basically what you're doing is molding the inside of the wood to the contours of the action. And what that does is it doesn't allow any movement back and forth. Again, you're trying to create consistency, and consistency is only created by getting rid of all the possible variables. This right now as it is would be what I would call a starter setup, right? You're talking a $250 scope, you're talking $100 rings, the bases are probably 60 bucks. And I don't say this disparaging because in the States, we're very lucky in the sense that we can go hunt with all in 800 bucks. I mean, some rifles, if you get to like a TC Venture, you're in for the rifle for 450 bucks and put a $150 scope and you're out there hunting. Savage Axis, all of that stuff. So In Europe, dude, you're in $3,000.
Yeah.
You can't go hunt unless you spend $3,000 on equipment. So I don't think that that's reasonable, especially if you don't even know if you're going to like hunting and stuff, or you got a young kid, and you want to get them into it, but you don't know if they're going to like it. So it doesn't make any sense to spend that kind of money on that. I like synthetics. I think if you're going to hunt Alaska, something wet, you're going to hunt elk in the Colorado Rockies, I think that you're foolish to not seriously look at synthetics. HS Precision makes amazing aftermarket stocks for all these different makers. That's a great synthetic stock for what it is. So when I say a great synthetic stock, I mean it's got a through bolt. That's my criteria. You can't use a rifle that doesn't have a through bolt, in my opinion. That's the deal breaker. If you bought an Access or something like that, or some of the Winchesters, I think JoJo's got a Winchester, that the screw is a wood screw that goes into plastic. And it just stripped. Yeah. So,
You mean like a Savage Axis?
a Savage Axis, yeah. I bought Isabella a Savage Axis. Yeah, it's a starter rifle. Yeah. Yeah, it's an entry level. It's unloaded. There's no ammo here, but you can certainly feel the weight on that thing. It's pretty darn heavy. Yeah. And mount the rifle so you can see what I mean. That rifle doesn't have a rear adjustment, but if you mount the rifle, you'll have a clear sight picture. It's set up correctly, and your cheek is going to be nice and. Yeah, if you're taller, you'll need a little bit more space. That scope is considered a conflict because the adjustments are in MOA, but the mil dots are in mil radian. So you're using a metric scale for a different measure. So if I show you this thing, so this is the newer caliber, the 300 PRC. This platform is perfect in every sense. It's perfectly balanced. It is fully adjustable. So for tall people, you go up on the cheek, you go here. Features that are maybe very common in your Bagheera, right? You have these two features. You see how big this is? The objective? Well, no problem, because you can go up on your cheek. If you don't have this, you can't do this, right? You're gonna do that, or you're gonna do this. But you gotta do one of the two. Otherwise, all you're gonna do is see the bottom of that rifle. So I promised you'd see that. So let's do that with this rifle here. So I want you guys just into the air, mount this rifle, and put your cheek on it hard, and you'll see what I mean. All you're gonna see is under the scope. Yeah, that's a sniping rifle. That's Overwatch. That could go on a tripod. That can go on a bipod. So I'm gonna tell you why you have to squeeze your cheek. You should feel the bone on there. You're gonna teach your body to put your face on the gun the same way every time. If you don't do that, you're not gonna get the bullets at longer range. Look, at 100 yards, it doesn't matter. You know, you're gonna be off by an inch or two or whatever. But at 400 or 500 yards, which is most of these platforms' effective kill rate, you could kill an elk 450, 500 yards with any of these guns, no problem. Obviously not the 243, but the other ones. So put your cheek on there hard. So what ends up happening is you're floating. So sometimes when you mount the gun, you're here. Other times you're here. Other times you're here, right? What I want you to do is be able to mount the gun and always see a clear sight picture, like you will with this one right now. You're gonna do the same exercise. So when you mount the gun, you're like just like that. So for me, it's still too low. My dad is left-handed, so he has left-handed guns. So you're gonna have to deal with a setup like that where you're gonna have to buy a riser. So see right here where I'm squeezing, I can't see, I see black. So I gotta go higher. Now this is a lot higher than my 308. So now I got a beautiful sight picture. And if you're taller than me, probably have to raise a little bit higher. And that barrel is not as long as the AR barrel. The AR barrel is a little bit more. It's about an inch or two longer. Now that has a crazy muzzle brake on it. That's the muzzle brake that this comes with. Check that thing out. Look how heavy it feels. Some of you can't tell, but there's a cap on there. That's how tight that is. That's for windage and for elevation. Let's talk about the pricing of the scopes. I got one of these used on Gunbroker for for $850. I think MSRP on this is like $1,299, $1,300. What'd you pay for yours? Okay, so that's a good deal for a new one, because that's new. If you find it somewhere about 11, anywhere 1,000 to 1,100 bucks.
Which one is that?
This is the VX5. Some guys are like, hey, I don't think it's ethical to hunt animals at 500 yards or 400 yards. Some people say anything past 200 is too much, whatever. Honestly, it really just depends on what you're hunting and where you're hunting and really your skill level, right? If you can go to the range and hit a 6-inch plate regularly at 500 yards, there's no reason you can't take a shot at an elk at 500 yards if you want to. So this is my little California legal gun. This is really my favorite AR that I have. It's a Thunder Ranch setup. You can see there's little holes in here. It's because I'm a contractor. I like windows. You can be able to look through the window. But this is actually meant for you to be able to stick your fingers in here if you get a jam and wiggle stuff out, right? So this is a custom setup. I have a light rail on here. The light's not on here right now, but I have a nice trigger. The scope is not insanely expensive. This is like a $500 setup. There's definitely more expensive scopes, but it's a solid rifle. It's a solid platform. That rifle, you can do close quarter combat, you can clear the room, or you can shoot stuff out to 400 or 500 yards, no problem. I'm gonna show you another gun that's purpose built and is not so flexible. The Gucci gun. It's all Gucci. This is Tiffany green with a gold bolt. But don't let her feminine looks deceive you. Actually, take a look at the pass around. That gun will hit steel at 300, no problem. But it's not meant for that. That Leupold setup is meant to be close quarter. These Chinese scopes and the Chinese mounts don't mount hard enough on here to hold a zero. So if you have a little bit of micro movement, it'll be enough to open your group. You get rid of the scope, you get rid of these mounts, get some good scope and a good mount, and this rifle should do sub-minute angle for sure. If you notice, the scope on that is a lot smaller, right? So it is a lot more important to be level, especially because I'm shooting that offhand. I'm not really shooting that from a tripod. I could put a bipod on it, but I'm mostly shooting that offhand. So I just want to make sure if I'm shooting a little further that I'm a little bit level.
Okay. Where's these are going to be?
Where those, they will be level. I could tell when I'm shooting prone that we're level.
Okay.
Yeah. Really, it's use, right? It's use. You would never try and clear the house with that big ass, sword. So let's talk about what happens when you're trying to make something work that doesn't work. I do have a little bit of China on this, unfortunately. It's this. So this is an Arca rail. This is to go on tripod. This particular brand is made in China. I think it's like 20 or 30, probably 30 bucks. But it's pretty good. This does work okay. If it's really nice tight on an M-lock, it serves its purpose. If your setup is wrong, you'll drive yourself crazy trying to get tight. I'm just telling you, after driving myself crazy, this is where I ended up. So for a scoped rifle on an AR, it's that setup. The rings on that were $250. Yeah, they're $250. Stupid money. But it stopped moving. That rifle shoots quarter minute of angle. They're like that. They're touching. And it doesn't have that much magnification. Shoots real good. I got rid of all the stuff that was moving around. If you were to look at this AR-10, this setup here is insufficient. This needs to be upgraded. Although you can see how big these screws are. You can torque that shit down. There's a YouTube video that I was watching about a guy, he's a rifle builder, custom rifle builder, and he said that once he started torquing the barrel to the receiver on bolt guns to 500 pounds of force, the groups dropped in half, 50% improvement. There's no fucking movement at 500 pounds. Now, if you do this to this AR, you're gonna break the receiver. That won't do it. We're talking steel to steel. Right, so steel to steel, plus a bolt gun setup like that, you can get a lot of torque. In fact, if you look at the HS Precision, there's even like a special tool to get that barrel on there, right? I'm not talking about doing that stuff in the garage, I'm just talking about like getting it down. So that 300 PRC is a sub MOE gun. The 308 Winchester that I have in the car is also a sub-MOA gun with ammo. Look, it's not gonna be cheap, but if you count how much ammo you'll burn trying to get those groups small, you'll pay for the equipment in a year. Because you'll just, and here's the other thing, you'll also, when you get the right setup, all in the back of your mind, you will not be unsure. You will be 100% sure that that you're ready to make that shot. So if it's 50 yards or 500 yards, you're gonna be ready to go. So that is what the case that I would make for that. There's two schools of thought. If you're going to be hunting in very brushy country, you get this guy, no magazine. In fact, the 300 Win Mag that I sold Aaron is slick. It doesn't even have a bottom plate. Why? Because if you're going through real brushy stuff, you lock your bolt, this doesn't open up. I've got two TC Ventures that I've been hiking with this slung, normally, and just hitting branches, this opened up. Another occasion, the magazine came out, okay? Now granted, that's a $350 rifle, okay? That's not this. So there's that train of thought. The other train of thought is, I want a magazine because I'm hunting in and out of the car, and I want to be able to load the sucker in without dumping everything out all the time. So, sure, yeah, all of that, yeah. So you're hunting in Texas out of a ATV, out of a car, whatever. Got a loaded mag, boom, rack. You keep it close, you keep it chamber empty, put one in there, and you're loaded. But if you need to go on the road and you need to be empty, you just unload it, right? For me, it'll really determine where I go hunting. But I'll be honest with you, my thing will be different in the sense that if I carry a 3 capacity, I will have my buttstock full of ammo. When I pick up the gun, everything that I need to make the kill will be on the gun. I'll have 7 or 10 rounds in here, and I'll have 3 rounds in there. So it doesn't matter where I stored the gun. Obviously, when I store it, I'm gonna take one out of the pipe. It'll just be in the magazine. During the course of the 7 days that you're out hunting, or in the case of when we're in Africa, we're the whole day out hunting. So during the course of getting in and out of the car over a few days, your gun may be in different conditions. But if something gets spooked and you gotta get out of the car in a hurry and somebody hands you your rifle, enough ammo should be on the gun that you're not looking for additional ammo, auxiliary ammo in your backpack or on your person. It should be on the gun, always. So I think that solves that problem of not having enough ammo. I was in an elk hunt, probably the second year, where the guy had a 7mm. He fired empty, he had 2 shells, he fired those, and he went empty, he had no more fucking ammo. Elk wasn't dead yet. He got the elk, it was humping around, but wasn't dead yet. So how much ammo should you carry? You should have at least 15 rounds, I think. I got a 3-rounder for the big boy, and I got a 7-rounder. Yeah. So it's just a hassle, right? To be constantly emptying out, opening the flap. There's ammo in your bag, you're walking around, it's making a bunch of noise. So I would say if you're hunting out of a ATV, this is what you need, okay? Now, I have a favorable prejudice towards a metal magazine. These feed much better than these feed by a big factor. They feed every time. So the AR mags, if you compare a P mag to metal mag made for that, like a FN or something made by ACS, the metal mags feed way better, like way better. And it has a positive click. So HS Precision re-engineered this. There's a spring here, right? So you see the lip on here? It goes on the spring. No, it's unloaded. Okay, and what happens is when this pops out, it literally pops out. Like it gets flung out under spring pressure, right? But these are little things, right? These rifles are made for military operations, right? Where you would use these big bad boys and you're shooting at multiple targets. You just want a new fresh mag and you don't want that. The old ones were a little bit stickier. I would describe it as stickier. And I think that all of the plastic magazines are stickier. But if plastic is all you got, then that's it. Now, HS Precision does make metal magazines for 700 lowers, and that's what these are. This is a 700 clone in certain respects. And where did you get this piece? Because this didn't come with it, right?
No.
This was an aftermarket piece. Okay, so there's HS Precision makes it, Legacy makes it, and that basically allows you to get rid of that bottom plate and put in a detachable box mag. So take the magazine in and out of this one and pass it around, and I'll show you on the HS Precision.
Yours didn't come with it?
So we'll pass this one around. I'll give you the big one. I would take this off like this with this open. I did have a negligent discharge in Africa with my 300. I did. Luckily, it was in the sky. But I had it. I had one in the chamber, and I was going back. No, it was mine. It was one of the HS Precisions. So instead of doing this and then taking the mag out, I did this. I did that. Luckily, it was aimed up. But I was going to push it with my thumb, but the back of my thumb touched the trigger. And it scared the fucking shit out of everybody, including me.
What is that, like a 1 pound trigger?
You're going to work through all of your gear by going to the range often. And whatever you keep fucking with that isn't working, change it. Get rid of it. Try something else. At some point, you got to stop the madness. At some point. At some point. So if it's not working, change it and work through the different stuff. And then once you get the rifle how you like it, man, you'll have that confidence to be able to take those difficult shots. With 600 yards in, 550 in, all will kill well. The measuring mechanism is, will the bullet be supersonic, and will it be going at the velocity that the manufacturer says the bullet will open? You need to have most bullets most hollow point bullets need to be going about 12 to 1300 feet per second to properly open. If you go, when you look at the ballistics chart for that load, and in fact, you can even download different apps and all that stuff. When you start seeing that number go to below, say 1300, you're in the danger zone. Now, will the bullet penetrate the deer or the elk? Yeah, but here's the difference. Any of your 30-06, your 308, 7 mil, your 270s, if the elk, if you shoot him broadside, let's say you got a bad shot and he turns around, starts running away, shoot him again. Shoot him through the back hip, either the top of the spine or break the ham. Keep shooting him. That bullet will penetrate 3 feet, right? If you're 3 feet at 100, 200 yards, 300 yards, it won't do that if you're at 800 yards. You're just not going to get that penetration. The importance is that you understand the ballistics of the particular load that you're shooting. So once you find a bullet load, a manufacturer, let's say Barnes, or some of you guys use A-frame or whatever it is that you end up using, don't switch. Don't switch. Once you dial in the rifle, that's it. That's it. You gotta stick with it, okay? If on the off season you wanna shoot something else, fine. But don't shoot American Eagle and then try and compare that to your match ammo, your Hornady match, your Sierra Match King match. You're just not gonna get it. You're gonna go crazy, being pissed because your groups are not gonna be that small. It's totally different ammo, totally different powder. Some powders are very sensitive to temperatures or temperature changes. So once you find the deal your gun likes, that's it. So for a 308, here in California, you're gonna either shoot a GMX bullet from Hornady or you're gonna shoot a Barnes. That's it. That's all you got. For a 308, if you wanted to shoot for practice, you can get Sierra Match King 186 grains for your practice loads at 25 to 30 bucks a box. Yeah, 168. If you have a 300 Win Mag, you're gonna be shooting a 180 grain bullet. You may be tempted, once you see the ballistics on the 300 PRC, to put a bigger bullet on your 300 Win Mag. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't really go more than 205, and I wouldn't even do that. I'd just stay at 180. So the pressure by sticking more bullet into that case, it goes up big time. There's a really good podcast of the Hornady guys talking about why they created the 300 PRC. They needed to get rid of the ring around the base of that case, and they needed to make it a little bit wider to bring the pressure loads down. When you look at a case for a 300 Weatherby, it's huge compared to the Win Mag. Roy Weatherby invented the 300 Win Mag, and it was the king of elk for 20 years. There was no competition from Winchester for that cartridge for 20 years. It was the king of the hill, but it was chambered in a Mark V action, which was twice the price of what Remington and Winchester were selling their Model 70s and the Model 700s. So what they did is the shorter action is cheaper to produce. That's how Winchester beat them. So they were able to bring the gun down maybe 20% in price. And slowly but surely, the Win Mag started to make gains, and it eventually won. When you go to Africa, American hunters, shoot 300 Win Mag. That's what you find. If you were to lose all your ammo, no chance. It will be impossible for you not to be able to replace your ammo if you're shooting a 300 Win Mag. That's the other consideration of what your caliber should be. What's the environment? What's the game animal? And where are you hunting? There's context to that. If you're here in the US, no problem. 30-06, 308, 270, 7 mil. Shit, even shoot the PRC stuff. You'll find some PRC ammo somewhere. It'll be harder. 300 PRC is harder to find, and the 7 mil PRC is even harder. That's kind of like the latest adopter. So these cartridges are not new, by the way. These were all invented 2011, something like that. They became commercially viable 2018, and look, we're at 2024 on the tail end of 2025, and the 300 PRC is really now starting to gain some momentum, just because it's so accurate. Yeah, the 6.5, but this shoots a 30 caliber bullet that's 225 grains at 2,800 feet per second. The velocity of the 300 Win Mag, but with 50 grains more. So when this thing hits, look, dude, don't shoot a deer with this. Don't do that. Don't do that. This is not good. There's gonna be big chunks missing. 6.5 PRC, no problem for deer, but don't shoot a deer with that. That's for, they'll make a hunting rifle. The Christensen and some of the other guys make, Bergara makes a hunting rifle in 300 PRC. But I don't recommend that for deer. The 300 PRC is $65 a box for 20. If I shot like what I'm shooting now at those prices, I wouldn't be able to buy other stuff like food. So I could load, let's say, once you buy the brass, once you have the brass, right? So what I did, instead of buying brass, I bought loaded ammo, shot it, and kept the brass. The brass is $2 if you buy it retail on its own. If you buy the box, you're still paying $2 for the brass. You're just saving on the load. So it's $49 for 100 pieces. Actually, I have a box in the car. I think it's $49 for 50 pieces. 50 projectiles. It's a $1 projectile, and I'm probably going to use about 75 cents in powder, and then another maybe 10, 15 cents in primer. So I'm going to be way under that $3 threshold. I'll be at like $1.60, $1.50, something like that, and I could tweak it. That's one reason to do that. The other reason is I could make a rifle that shoots mediocre shoot really well by finding the velocity that barrel likes. Okay, and you really start to understand the capabilities of that system. Like when I first started, and I didn't have a whole lot of money, I basically had a Tasco scope. In fact, I'll probably be putting up that rifle up for sale. But I have a Tasco scope that I paid maybe $220 for. The rings are like $80, and the rifle's brand new, maybe $450. That's a $600 setup. But I made that shoot quarter MOA, or half MOA. That's what you could do. Otherwise, if you shoot factory ammo, it's a 3-minute angle at 100 yards. 3-inch, 4-inch group. Looks like that, right? Not an impressive thing. Definitely will kill a deer. So for a 30 caliber, if you want to go higher than a heavier bullet than a 180 grain, you got to go to 1 in 8 twist. It must be a faster twist to stabilize that bullet. So that's the other thing. If you put a heavy bullet with a 300 Win Mag, you just don't have the twist. You're not going to get the performance. You're going to probably be shooting a high pressure round, and you're not going to get the performance. If you want to go faster with a heavier bullet, get the next proper cartridge. Don't try and tweak it so much. Your 308 is going to be lethal, no problem, 500 yards, no problem. No problem. In fact, when you hit steel at 500 yards over at the range, you will see that thing swing. That'll get a pass-through hit at 500 yards. When the military wanted to have a cartridge that was lethal at 1,500 yards, 1,200 yards, they invented the 338 Lapua. That's where it got its, because it could pass a ceramic plate at 1,500 yards. Full body armor, ceramic plate, it'll penetrate and kill the guy. So that's a very specific, mission-specific cartridge. The PRC will hit that far, but it won't hit you that hard. The 330, I'll give you an example. 338 Lapua, muzzle velocity on a 270 grain bullet, which is even heavier than the PRC. It's going 2,800 feet per second, so the same velocity, but with a heavier bullet. And when it hits that plate at 1,500 yards, you could tell that the Lapua hit the plate. I mean, it's a solid, you could hear the ring even that far. You can hear it, it hits it really hard. It's very specific stuff, very, very specific. For North American hunting, all of those cartridges that you guys said will 100% work. The question is, can you talk yourself into spending a little bit more money on the right optic and the right mounts? With the lesser expensive setups, you're gonna be basically stopped here. You're gonna plateau here. With a nicer setup, you're gonna be able to go here. Because you're gonna be able to do load data out to the 500 yards and you'll be able to shoot consistently out to those distances. And that's really the big difference, is to have the gear to be able to do that. No, you can totally take the 30-06 to Africa. Yeah, the 30-06 is probably the exception because it has a longer rifle case, you can put a 180 grain bullet. You can have very specific, they have factory loaded ammo 180 grains, but you can load that almost to the same velocity and performance as a 300 Win Mag. When you glass bed it, that action fits like a glove into that stock. And you can deal with potentially any harmonics issue. It could be that the barrel's now touching somewhere else. Like, you really would like to have a free floating barrel. You really don't want that barrel touching your stock if you can avoid it.
Okay. What was the big problem with this floating barrel? What was wrong with that, with this rifle?
It wasn't floating. It had homeless grit inside between the barrel. I mean, I took the thing apart. It looked like he had shaken like a gravel pit with stuff in there. And the stock was not tight against the receiver, and he couldn't get it. He replaced it with an HS Precision stock. I got to give him credit, man. He really did the right thing. He took the rifle in, he replaced the stock, he got some badass rings, he got that scope, and he shot a baboon at 630 yards with it. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. When you get the stuff squared away, and every shot that he made that was properly set up, he made a good shot. I mean, dead animal. He shot the Gems buck dead. The other two animals, he whacked out really, really nicely. And he was confident in it. He went to the range. He probably could have gone a few more times to the range, but he did go to the range maybe 3 or 4 times, at least twice after the rifle was fixed, and it turned out well. If you want to shoot, it's very simple. If you want to shoot past 300 yards, you need a scope with numbers on it. That's it. That's your measure. If you're telling me, Alex, listen, man, I'm not interested in shooting an animal past 300, then you don't need it.
You can send it in and they'll give you the custom,
You'll probably have one of these turrets.
Yeah, custom turret, you can get it.
That's right. With that turret, there's big problems with it. I took that turret to Africa the first trip, and I spun it. I went, I think it was out to 800 yards, and I forgot where I was in place, and I had to go back and sight it in. So that's why you get this with a 0 stop. This is why I hunt with this and not with that anymore. That's a badass scope. The glass is good. It has a positive click and all that. But you're not going to be guaranteed to go to 0 unless you have a stop on there. It was really nerve-wracking because I missed the Warthog at 800, and then I didn't know what was going on. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, what's going on? And then I saw another, I think we had seen a kudu, and I didn't shoot at the kudu because I wasn't 100%, that my rifle was 100%. So time out, go to the range, recentered, blew 4 or 5 shots, and then I was on again. But I'll never do that again. That's why that's worth the money.
So what's
The idea is that this is my philosophy. If you go to the range, you're going to say, I'm going to shoot 40 rounds. I'm going to spend $120, shoot 2 boxes, and I'm going to make sure that everything on my rifle is dialed in. So what am I going to do? I'm going to set up on my bags or on my bipods. I'm gonna shoot from the sticks. Once your rifle is solid and you know how it performs, then you can do advanced stuff, which is shoot from sticks, shoot prone, shoot kneeling, shoot squatting. You can do all these other things. But until you know that rifle's shooting consistently, you can't do all that other stuff, right? So that's what I would say to you. I would say my argument would be like, okay, during the year, I'm gonna go once every other month, and I'm going to blow $120 on ammo. I'm going to shoot 2 boxes, and they're going to be perfect practice. I'm going to shoot 4 or 5 shots at 100, make sure my zero's good, and then I'm going to bring her all the way out to my distance that I would be hunting at, my maximum distance.
So is it safe to say though, let's just say I go out there, right? Let's say I have a box and shoot 5 rounds out of that box, and we're shooting great. Save that box and go, these are boxes to go hunting with, or
well, I would probably do that before the hunting season. So let's say, sure, fine. So what I would do is I would buy a case at a time.
Yeah.
I would buy 10 boxes, 200 rounds, and work through that. Because I'll be all from the same lot, not 10 individual boxes, buy the entire case. And then you know that you're gonna, once you're zeroed, you're gonna stay zero.
And we're gonna be consistent
Yeah.
in the same case, right?
Yeah, shoot 2 boxes every 2 months, and you'll stay proficient enough for hunting.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions? No? All right, well, thanks, guys. Cool. Guys, I want to thank everybody here at the Redondo Rod and Gun Club for hosting this event. We're going to be having several talks over the course of the year. Hopefully, you can make it onto the next one. My name is Langosta from the Rifle, Rods, and Broads podcast. Thank you, and saying goodbye.